looking at 1 Nephi chapter 4, verse 13. Behold, the Lord slayeth the wicked to bring forth his righteous purposes. It is better that one man should perish than that a nation should dwindle and perish in unbelief. We're going to be looking at this from an Israelite mindset versus a frontier Western American mindset that Joseph Smith would have had at the time. Tried to determine, to the best of our abilities, who wrote this verse. Was it Joseph Smith in the early 1800s in America on the Western frontier, or was it Nephi in Jerusalem around 600 BC? Okay, so a contemporary of Joseph Smith, who lived in the time and place that he did, Benjamin Franklin stated, "It's better that 100 guilty persons should escape than that one innocent person should suffer." Nearly the exact opposite mindset that we read in the Book of Mormon was the mindset of the colonizers of the American frontier. So this does not sound like somebody that is patriot, an early patriot of America. This sounds like this mindset comes from a different culture and different time and a different place. We do see criticisms of this verse from anti-Mormons who say that Joseph Smith took this quote from Caiaphas and entered into the Book of Mormon, and that it was an issue, 600 or 700 years after the fact that Nephi and Lehi left. This was a mindset, but not necessarily at that time. So a little context here. We have Caiaphas, who has Jesus Christ on trial, who is the high priest, says, "Nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation should perish not." So, like I said, some people call this an anachronism because we see this same mindset being shared by a Jew, a high priest even, at the trial of Jesus, which took place obviously 600 years after Nephi had this thought in his mind. However, there are other examples that the anti-Mormons fail to mention from the Old Testament. One from 1000 BC, when we see Sheba and Jehoiakim, who is actually a contemporary of Nephi and Lehi, living in Jerusalem at the exact same time period. This is no doubt what was on the mind of Nephi when he was standing before Laban. And you can see from this chart that these are all laid out, and there's 5 conditions that must be met in order for each of them to be justified in the killing. And you can see that all 5 of the conditions were met in every situation and were documented. So this is in no way an anachronism of time or place. This is actually spot on from what we know from the Bible that took place, and that was a political and religious issue that was debated among the Sadducees and the Pharisees. So much so that in the Talmud, the anti-Mormons don't tell you this, there is something called the Hadrianic Resolve that was put in 132. After all this argument of whether this principle was true or not, or whether the killing of one man could be justified if it would save an entire nation, Hadrian was a Roman ruler who was really a forerunner or precursor to Adolf Hitler, who really wanted all the Jews to be enslaved and taken prisoner and killed. And because of this, the Jews decided that once and for all, if in a situation like this, like Hadrian or like the other ones that we mentioned, it is better that one man should perish than an entire nation should perish. So this was the Hadrianic Resolve that's found in the Talmud still today. So in conclusion, I'm not sure what the probability of Joseph Smith recognizing the Hadrianic Resolve from the Talmud, referencing it in the same place and time as it was mentioned in the Old Testament, and using language almost verbatim from Hebrew rabbis and leaders. For him to understand that, he would have had to have an intense understanding of Jewish history and Jewish teachings and Jewish law. But for Nephi, it would have been second nature and a political issue that was on the forefront of everyone's mind in that day and time.